Welcome to the Mindfully Gay podcast. I'm John Cottrell.
And I'm Jerry Buie.
Today, we're continuing a conversation that clearly resonated with so many of you: radical self-acceptance.
What does it actually mean to remove the layers we've built over time and come home to ourselves? In this episode, we talk about authenticity, self-trust, queer ancestry, brotherhood, and why community is such a powerful catalyst for healing.
We're also sharing more about our upcoming men's retreat built around this exact theme. Let's begin.
Good morning, good day. Welcome to Mindfully Gay. I am Jerry.
And I'm John.
And we are excited to meet with you today, and hopefully you will enjoy this podcast. Several weeks ago, we did a topic, Reclaiming Your Authentic Self.
Yes.
And that got a lot of energy, a lot of excitement.
Mm-hmm.
And we have decided to add a retreat to our calendar. And so we're looking to do that in March. I forget what the dates are.
The end of March. Oh, gosh. Oh, here you go. March 27th through the 29th.
Yes.
So coming up.
And we decided that the theme of this retreat is going to be about radical self-acceptance.
Right.
And so we thought we wanted to kind of focus our podcast about that topic once again, because it generated so much interest.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, we just want to bait you to sign up for the retreat because we know it's going to be amazing. Those who have been to the retreats know that they're amazing. And so we want you to come and join in the amazing vibration that we're creating.
Exactly. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, I thought this would be a good topic for not only for the podcast, but for a retreat. Like, why don't we step into this? We talked about it on the podcast. Like you said, it got a lot of, buzz. And, why don't we integrate this into a weekend full session where we really get in there? Because what I envision is, something around, here's the picture I had in my head, was like a person just wearing too many coats, sweaters, coats, just too many layers, right? And they're just kind of walking around with all these layers. Mm-hmm. And going into a retreat like this is about removing those layers.
Yeah.
Just get to the bottom of things and really get to see who you really are, as opposed to just kind of walking around and presenting self in a way where people are expecting you to be a certain way, or you think you need to be a certain way. And we walk around with these masks and all these layers. And is that truly you? Is that radical self-acceptance when you're covered up?
Yeah.
But taking some time to take the hat off, take the mask off, take those layers off, and show yourself, present yourself, and shine the light that you really are.
Well, and I think, right, the byproduct of reclaiming ourselves and having our own process of self-acceptance really empowers us.
Right.
And I had a conversation the other day with a client that was kind of saying, well, what's the point of all this?
Interesting.
And all of this meaning exploring family dynamics, exploring interpersonal dynamics. And I said, I think once we bring into consciousness how we've existed, when we recognize maybe the shadow parts of that, the limitations of some of that, when we start to recognize how we've held ourselves back and we have some consciousness about it, then we have choices.
Yeah.
And we have choices that we can step into.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the power of this kind of, I always use the word work, and that sounds laborious, but maybe this is the opportunity that presents itself to do this layer of self-examination.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I was thinking, as you were saying that, people, the question you can ask on a superficial level is, are you happy? Just on the superficial level, are you happy with who you are and how life is going? And if someone really hasn't kind of tapped into some of those things, a person might just say, yeah, I'm happy with my life, I'm content, I'm
Mhm.
good, right? But once there's an awareness of
You're miserable.
of another part of self, or a reaction to something that reveals, an emotion or a thought or something that gives you an indication that there may be something else there inside, like you said, then there's a choice
Yeah.
to either just stay with that contentment, air quotes, and or take a look at this other dynamic and examine it, get curious about it, play with it, uh, and see where it takes you. What spark does that ignite,
Yeah.
perhaps?
Yeah.
Because I think there's, like you said, it's an opportunity, and there might be some potential there for growth or reexamination, or I mean, There's a lot of ways that the end point can be many things.
Yeah. I, you know, you and I have talked about this before. There's a hesitation.
Mm,
Like people seem to really like what we're doing, but there's this hesitation about actually showing up.
right.
And um, part of it may be the language. I kind of was socialized to use language in a particular way when it comes to kind of spirit-based psychological processes.
Mhm.
And that word is work, right? Which I don't hear as a bad thing, but I get that if I'm not part of a community that understands the context of that, is like, well, I don't want to go to a 3-day work session.
Yeah.
um, and so I think it's important that people understand that what we seek to create, you and I,
Mhm.
as well as get our participants to participate in,
Mhm.
is creating a container
Mm.
that allows for certain processes to unfold, that give permission for us to try on new things.
Yes.
And
I love it.
and so what I'm excited about, when we talked about the other day doing this particular retreat, I thought, wow, it's going to be exciting if people show up and get really invested in creating this container. People could really leave this retreat like elevated,
Mhm.
enhanced, could walk through their lives in a very different way once they find that space of self-validation and acceptance.
Right. Right. Self-validation, and I think a part of that, and why it is a retreat, and why it's community, why it's circle, and we do it in group fashion so that we can um, lift each other up. We can witness the light in someone else, especially if someone else is like, they're not seeing it, but maybe it's someone else is and can articulate it and say, hey, wait a minute, I see that talent, I see that, glowing brightness in you, and this is how I see it, this is how I perceive it, etc. Yeah, to give that person um, some information regarding who they really are. And like you said, they can leave this weekend feeling enhanced, enlightened, using this new knowledge
Right.
about self to step into whatever work or school that they might be doing, or activities that they're in. It may show up very differently, and how they're approaching those things very differently, because they're seeing and feeling themselves very differently. That's what I'm hoping, that um, the self acknowledgement, along with the kind of the community observation and witnessing of the same thing, is going to just, like you said, enhance who this person is,
Yeah.
who we are.
Do you know, we're talking about raising that layer of consciousness to give us options. And just as you were talking, an example came to mind.
Mm-hmm.
When we give this assignment, we create what's called an ancestor altar.
Yeah.
And ancestors can be a very broad concept in spiritual realm, right? So my ancestors could just be spirit entities that carry my back. They could be the generations that came before me in terms of family.
Right.
I have pets and friends that have
Mm.
passed on that are part of my ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, but one of the things we encourage people to do is to identify individuals who identified as queer or gay, who lived before us, who may have paved the path.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're encouraging people to kind of get into some gay history
Yeah.
and to find ancestors from that lineage
Yeah.
that we can put on the altar.
Right.
So one person I tend to bring is Harry Hayes,
Yeah.
who was the founder of the Mattachine Society as well as the Radical Fairies. I had an opportunity to meet him and spend some time with him.
Yeah.
And so I always put him on there because I know that he is a gay historical figure that, and what I know is that most people in our gay community don't even think of the idea that we are a cultural identity, let alone having a relevant gay history. And what's always interesting is when people show up in the circle, they're like, wow, I never thought about this before. I never considered this. And they end up doing some research and coming back with a picture and saying, this is what I learned about this person's life,
Mm-hmm.
who lived in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, that was part of the foundational movement of queer civil rights.
Yeah.
And I think the observation I make, and maybe you get a different one, is understanding that our existence as gay and queer individuals is not just about what's happening in 2025 and 26, but that we are a byproduct of the accumulation of those historical figures who dared to stand up in a time where that was just lethal.
Yeah. Right.
And I just think there's a sense of, wow, I didn't know this about my history.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. What comes to mind is, going back to that observation that when we have events and retreats, people have a tough time showing up. And I get a sense that maybe they feel alone,
Mm-hmm.
just alone, just this solo person that's just kind of out in the world. And I think what this exercise does, setting the altar, but the homework before that to investigate and find, a gay historian, one, to learn a little bit more about gay history, but also to see the community that came before us.
Yeah.
That we can tap into in order for us to feel like a community in the living world, but also we're backed up by this ancestral community as well. That we're not alone in this, especially for someone like a Harry Hay. I usually bring Marsha P. Johnson, to the altar, and she was a great activist and that kind of thing, and just someone of empowerment, and to remember, who she really was and what she brought to our community, right? And the spirit of it,
Mm-hmm.
and the energy of that. Because I think that's the magic. That's the spirituality. That's the magic, I think, that we are serving and offering when we do this altar work and acknowledging these particular ancestors. One, we're not alone. Two, we have a community, and this powerful spirit tribe that led the way for us, that paved the path for us, and we can tap into that. And like you said, even with the podcast, the events, especially with the retreats, I think we're offering something to those who show up, something that they just never thought about at all or didn't even know existed. Like, I didn't know I could do that. And I love doing ancestor work because, like I said, if someone is feeling alone and maybe having some trouble with something, anxiety or depression or guilt or loneliness or whatever it is, and they don't feel like they can turn to someone, call somebody or text somebody to chat with, they can call on an ancestor, call on the spirit and energy of maybe that individual that they brought to the altar.
Do you remember? I think it was our very first podcast. And at that time, Nick was part of our little team. And remember, we were upstairs. And John has been around me for many years. And so the spirit stuff is he's connected to it. Nick, on the other hand, was very newly introduced to it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I remember the light going on in his head.
Wow, yes.
When he goes, wait a minute, you're telling me I have a council of ancestors that can help me out? Like I have my own team? And I'm like,
Yeah.
but even though we had chatted about this before, I don't think he was able to conceptualize it. And there was something in that first conversation where he's like, wow, I never considered that.
Yes.
Now, that was what, 2 years ago?
Oh, yeah. Something clicked.
And I'm just going to make a disclosure. Nick has taken that concept. He's created an ancestor altar. I look at his ancestor as someone who's like taught him. I'm a little embarrassed at my ancestor altar.
Oh, wow.
This is like a freaking gay shrine. But I can tell you that he has energetically aligned himself with that concept. And the success he's had in his training business and making his temporal life work, he frequently comes back and says, it's my ancestors. In fact, this morning, he couldn't come to the gym with me this morning. He goes, I'm sorry, I'm just so busy. It's all that manifestation work.
Wow.
But that's a good example of someone who gets introduced to an idea. I think it triggers that part of our DNA that historically, Melodoma Seme, who was an African shaman that I spent a lot of time with, there's a philosophy that deep in our bones, because our bone is mineral, and mineral holds kind of the historical indigenous knowledge, of our ancestors. And part of what Melodoma would do ritualistically is wake up your bones, shake your bones. And in shaking your bones, you start to get a new consciousness and a new awareness about how to relate to the earth, how to relate to each other, how to relate to the natural world and to the ancestors. And like I've seen this with people at the retreat. I've seen it with Nick, where that indigenous knowing gets awakened. And if you think about the spell that society has us in, just generally speaking, we default to others as our authority. It's my minister, it's my religion, it's my pastor, it's some fucked up politician, We're always looking for someone else to guide us. And in reality, when we get into the place of the mineral and wake up our indigenology, if you will, because we all come from the earth, we all come from people from the earth who knew how to incorporate things of spirit into their sense of identity and well-being and connection to community. It's interesting in Melodoma's philosophy, the place of nature. Nature is where one goes to awaken their authenticity. And so, in fact, as we're thinking about this retreat, and I'm thinking ritualistically what we can do, I'm thinking, what kind of ritualistic processes can we engage in the place of nature that will wake participants up to their authenticity? And then what can we do ritualistically to wake up the bones? To give permission and to break the spell and to find our own voice, to find our own authority, to find our own guruism.
Wow.
You bring into it, when we move our bodies, we awaken something. When we meditate, we awaken something. When we do ritual, we awaken something. So nobody's sleeping at the retreat because we're all going to be awake. So I don't know. That was just a tangent. Sorry.
It was a wonderful tangent because I think that's exactly what we want to offer and introduce to people this opportunity to awaken. I love that you use the word authority
Yeah.
in ourselves. That's deep in our bones. It's kind of locked away, and we have technologies and mechanisms and exercises and activities, whatever you want to call it, that will guide us and help us to take a peek behind the curtain and see what's really there, to see and to, like you said, unlock that magic and power that is in our DNA, that's in our bones, that comes to us from the beginning of time. I love when you say that, when we talk about our ancestors,
Yeah.
we think about our ancestors from the present time to the beginning of time. And all those we can turn to and count on as resources for our enlightenment. And I mean, even using that word, which is very yogic as well, um, that's, that's one of the technologies that we tap into. I believe with yoga, it's not about the poses and getting a nice warrior two or downward facing dog. It goes much deeper than that. It's yoga in this form, asana, the asana practice is a physical practice. We're getting into our bodies, we're moving our bodies, and kind of looking at it, elementarily, it's a way in. It's a way in. If we can, get the body doing these odd poses, it starts to unlock something. It helps us to tap into something that was hidden away or was uh, suppressed or repressed. And once that key has been turned, because we did a rotation, some kind of twist in a yoga practice, something opens and is released into the system, into the body, then and then also into the mind and into your spirit. And what I don't always get to do in a yoga class is to then sit down with my students and let's talk about that. Whereas when I do my yoga therapy or individual work or even a retreat, we get to talk about that experience. When you did that twist, something shifted. When you did that warrior two, something powerful seemed to emerge from you. Can you put words to that? And seeing if they can articulate some of those changes, those shifts, because that becomes the fodder for those that transformation, the magical transformation. And so that's just another experience of getting into your DNA. Yoga does the same thing. It gets into your DNA through these poses and breath work, etc.
Like awakens your DNA?
It awakens the DNA. And when you talked about nature, because I was thinking about where we're doing this particular retreat, we're going to do this in Heber City, which is about 40 miles outside of Salt Lake City. It's just past Park City. So you come up in the mountains and everything. And so, but near to where this home is that we're going to be doing the retreat is, there's some reservoirs, there's some mountainous areas. And so if we wanted to do some nature stuff and bring in that element, even do some kind of activity or exercises, we have access to, some water, mountains, trees, grass, etc., as more tools for activating that enlightenment.
It's interesting. Like, I love to hike, but what I really love about hiking is that I don't play music. I don't listen to books. I mean, I find that I will often kind of be in my head a little bit, but at some point I will find where I'm just kind of present.
Yeah.
I once had a friend. I like to go hiking on Fridays. And this friend, I was packing up to go hiking, so looking forward to it. And my friend called me and was just a neurotic mess. And I said, "All right, neurotic mess, how can I help you? What do you need from me?" And I just want to come and talk. I said, "Oh, I'm going on a hike, but why don't you come with me? We can talk on the hike. Because I knew he
Mhm.
was a hiker. He's like, okay, great idea. And so we went on a pretty simple hike, and he was kind of a mess. He had gone through just a lot of terrible things, and I just think he had kind of reached his, I can't do this anymore kind of a
Yeah.
thing. And so I put on my little shaman hat, and I said, I found this nice quiet spot. And I said, why don't you just sit here
Mm.
and just relax? Maybe
Mhm.
lay down on the ground or look off into the trees, or there was a waterfall. And I said, just kind of take it in, but just be here. I'm going to go up on this plateau
Mhm.
and I'm going to smoke I have a medicine pipe.
Right.
And I told him, I said, I want you to just pay attention that, like, the trees don't compare themselves to each other.
Mhm.
The tree's not trying to be like the rock, and the rock's not trying to be like the squirrel. I said, if anything's neurotic out here, it's probably a chipmunk. But just pay attention to how everything in nature knows its function
Mm.
and just purely exists and lives to survive.
Yeah.
And I'll be damned, I came back like a half hour later, and he was so relaxed,
Mhm.
so chilled, that he didn't even need to talk about what was on his mind. But the ability to be present in that space
Yeah.
allowed him to shake off the things that were on his back and to just be present and to be present.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that in that process, he was able to decompress.
Mm.
And that's what I love about nature. And so
Mhm.
who knows what the end of March will look like, but I think about my friends who love to ski, which I hate. Don't hate skiing, but I don't like being cold. But I think about all my friends who would never go on a hike but love to ski.
Yeah.
And do you know what they always tell me?
Hmm.
Is how peaceful it is.
Mm.
Well, where do we ski?
In the mountains.
In the mountains, amongst the trees,
Trees.
in the snow,
Yeah.
the cold, cold snow. And so, again, our existence has been so profoundly domesticated that we become very dismissive of the natural tools that are around us.
Right there.
I did a water ritual with melodrama once that just so woke me up
Right.
to aspects of myself and my environment that I had never really seriously contemplated.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting, I'm just thinking in all the rituals that I'm aware of, whether it's ayahuasca, a sweat lodge, despachos in South America, all of it takes us back to a place within and either presents the question or gives the invitation to shake off the domestication and to step more fully into our power.
Yeah, that's it.
And that power is this sacred integrative process.
Yeah.
And I'm not as astute on yoga, but sometimes, this is going to sound so corny, but sometimes I will have a really great yoga session. And I'll have this really profound sense of, I did that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's through the whatever the workout is or the process that just kind of has awakened, part of the domestication around aging, the part of the domestication about I work out, I can't be flexible, whatever. We so easily adapt stories that have nothing to do with what our capacity is about.
That's it.
And I can't help but to think there isn't some huge mechanism out there that's meant to keep us sedated. And even Miguel Ruiz in the Four Agreements, the whole metaphor of the smoky mirror is to wake up from the illusions of what we think is real,
yeah,
and to really profoundly walk in our sacred path.
That's it. Yeah. I love what you said about the yoga, because I think a lot of people, I know I've had that experience, and I know a lot of my students have had that same experience. And I try to replicate that in a way where, a class, I often will demonstrate a little flow and a pose or something. And I can just see my students' faces, like their mouths are agape, and like they're probably thinking, I can't do that. I could never do that. Right. Again, that domesticating and just or assuming for whatever reason I don't have the capacity to do that, which you just showed us, John. And I like to dispel that myth. It's like, oh, no, 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 you can do this. You can do this. And you're going to prove it to yourself. You're certainly going to prove it to me. I already know you can do this, but you're going to prove it to yourself that you can do this. And so I break it down, the poses and the sequence and everything. We go slow, and then we start to speed things up. And then you hit that pose where you thought, I could never do this. And you have that aha experience, like, oh my gosh, I did that. I remember this was some years ago. I think someone had that exact experience, and they couldn't contain it, that they had to say, I did it, out loud, quite loud in class. And they were embarrassed by saying it out loud, but I think it was just something that they just could not contain, because they were just so overwhelmed with the joy and the opportunity and experience of it all, that they just had to express it.
Yeah.
And I want all my students to have that kind of experience. I want folks that come to our retreats to have experiences like this. Like, yes, I can do this. Yes, I have, this magic. I have this power. I have this identity. And I don't have to live by someone else's rules, or whatever the case may be. And I can dispel the myths and take off these robes and really put on, that glorious realness of who I really am.
Well, I know when I was in your class, I thought the taser was very effective at getting me into those poses.
Exactly. It's very effective.
I'll do it.
It's very effective.
It wasn't a taser. It was like a mini EKG thing.
Just little
legs higher. Yes, sir.
but in a way, I mean, that's what's happening. There's a little jolt. Something happens. I mean, not literally, but something happens. A little jolt happens and unlocks something. I'm lately saying in my classes, we're going to tap into, or you'll start to recognize the subtle parts of yourself, the parts of self that you've put aside, the parts of self that you didn't even know existed, parts of self that you've just ignored. In yoga, we're going to get quiet and still. Even though we're moving and doing poses and all this stuff, there's still a quietness about it. There's still a stillness about it that allows you to be so present in the moment and still and quiet in the moment that these things are revealed to you. Yeah. You start to hear and feel and sense those subtle parts of self.
Yeah. We've seen this with sweat lodges.
Oh, yeah.
How many people come to... Do you remember that documentary we did?
Oh, my gosh.
And I remember watching the documentary, and part of the interview was, I was so afraid about going into the lodge. I'm like, I didn't know that. But a lot of people do approach that with a lot of trepidation.
Sure.
And I know we're not going to do a sweat lodge at this retreat, because it will be on the primary schedule for monthly activities. But it's interesting that people go into it with trepidation. They don't think they can do it. And then at the end, they're just like, wow.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and I think all of that becomes very metaphoric. I know for me, having done this for 100 years, when I'm faced with a new challenge, right, I go into it thinking, well, look at all the hard things I've done. Mm-hmm. I certainly have the capacity, and I can appreciate the value of having crossed those thresholds.
Yes, yes. And when you can embrace that and really kind of build yourself up upon that truth, I think that is radical self-acceptance. That's something radical about that.
Yeah.
It's not just kind of plain Jane and just, run-of-the-mill milk toast, kind of just blah. When you're able to tap into that realness, I think that's a radical statement and action in your own self-interest.
Yeah. So we're calling this retreat, and there's some points here I want to get to because they're juicy.
Okay.
And I forget what time we started, so just
Okay.
kick me
Gotcha.
when it's time to wind up. Because we're calling it radical self-acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
So here's my first question. What is self-acceptance?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are the symptoms of somebody who has self-acceptance?
I love the symptoms.
The symptoms. Like, how do we know when someone's got it?
The first thing that kind of pops into my head, because I saw it today, like at the gym, when I see someone, just kind of wearing whatever,
Uh-huh.
and without the regard of what they might look like in someone else's eyes, because it doesn't matter.
What were they wearing? No.
Well, I mean, it wasn't, maybe it's just bright gym clothes or something bright and pink, or I don't know. It could just be anything.
Uh-huh.
And my take might be, oh wow, and whereas for them, it's like, this is me. This is me.
Mm-hmm.
This is how I express myself. This is what I wanted to wear, and without a care of how anyone's going to react to it or perceive it or even judge it, because this is me.
So wardrobe choices.
I think, that it's certainly an outward, one way of looking at self-acceptance.
My friend Charles is here, who is 92 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And he's somebody who certainly has a sense of self-acceptance.
Yes, for sure.
And if I were to, there is nothing about Charles and how he shows up in the world, or whatever opinion or idea that he holds, that he's not very reserved about it. Certainly not apologetic.
That's the word.
Non-apologetic. It's that doesn't mean he isn't open to new ideas and conversations and evolving his thinking around something. But I don't think I've ever experienced him showing up in a sense of regret, apologetic, reserved.
Mm-mm.
He just exists in his fullness.
Right.
Those are some things I would point to.
Right. And something else about Charles too, like we just said, that non-apologetic, but certainly not in a negative way.
Or narcissistic.
Or narcissistic.
Yeah.
He's not threatened by other opinions or other thoughts or points of view. He's really quite open to hear it.
Right.
And share and intermingle, thoughts and feelings around it. So he's not threatened by, new or different ways.
I've watched him do, Charles is very intense, especially when he's working folks. And I've seen him engage people in processes, and some pocket of anger or resentment will get projected towards him. And I've never seen him wear someone else's projections. No. And in contrast, I know for me, if I hear some spark of criticism, I'll just do this deep dive, like, oh, what the fuck did I do? Right? I'll question myself. I'll have anxiety about it. So I've seen Charles kind of masterfully recognize when people are projecting or something that is happening that's outside of his responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
He's almost willing to be the conduit.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a very powerful place to be. So those are some symptoms of self-acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it when we add the word radical to it? Right? It's like throwing, butane on the process. So what is radical self-acceptance?
For someone like a Charles, he is always Charles. wherever he is, whatever he's doing, he's Charles, right? He doesn't have to put on some other hat or other garb or mask and try to pretend that he's something else or someone else. He's always himself. And I think that's radical, um, because he's truly in step with his with who he is.
Yeah.
And because how we describe that self-acceptance, he doesn't have to be anything else. And I think that's radical because um, it's out of the norm. It's not what people how people typically are.
Yeah, I think people try to seduce him to join in their neurosis.
Yeah, and he has nothing to do with
Right.
it.
And he's like,
he has yeah,
that's who you are.
yeah. He's not going to put that on.
So we'll make it personal. And I'll do this too, but I'm going to throw it at you first. In what ways are you radically self-accepting?
Of myself, self-acceptance, radical. I feel so different, and I take pride in that I kind of, what's the term, I beat my drum to my own beat after whatever see, I can't even say that.
What's wrong with you?
I don't know. But I take pride in how I kind of walk through life because it's so different.
It's unique. It's your signature.
Yes. And I love that about myself.
Well, see, I can looking in. See, I think you are an example of radical self-acceptance.
Really?
Oh yeah. Everything you do is incredibly unique. You fully invest in it, whether it's promoting a journal on Pinterest or body sensual work or how you approach yoga and drag or whatever, right? Like, I don't experience you as somebody who sounds apologetic in anything that you do. Meaning, that sounded kind of weird. I think what I'm saying is you show up, you allow your light to shine, and you're kind of okay with whatever reaction people give. You're just happy being you.
Thank you.
When you're naked.
I like that too. I appreciate that because there's certainly, like I said, I'm very proud of, what I like to do and how I've been approaching life, especially in my later part of my years, later part of my life, and I enjoy it and I love it. And, I'm still under the spell.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's, even though I'm still under the spell, I'm aware of the spell. The spell meaning, I do worry about what people might think sometimes, or will cater to their need and their desire, whoever they is, rather than mine first. I'll catch myself in those modes too.
But I would argue that is radical self-acceptance. Not that your glow doesn't ever have a dimness to it, but the radical self-acceptance is also the place of acknowledgement that I have room to grow. I have room to evolve. I have room to upgrade. I mean, Charles is 92 and we all think he's kind of a walking God. I've had some very intimate conversations with him where he'll say, wow, little Charlie really got triggered.
Oh.
Or I learned something about myself and I'm going to really focus on trying to work on this piece. And so to me, radical self-acceptance isn't, a score of 100 on self-esteem. I think it's this acknowledgement that we're having this human lived experience.
Right.
And that we're all possible of the process of evolution.
Absolutely.
Even I've shared this story before. Melanoma had invited Bruce and I to his deathbed, and we spent some time with him. And he made this request that he needed a few more days. He knew he was dying, wasn't afraid of dying, but and I just happened to ask, like, Melanoma, what motivates you to want more time? And he goes, I have a piece of work I need to finish. There's a part of me that I need to resolve. And so I need to go to the spirit world. I need to resolve that. And then I'll come back and I'll be ready. But I need a few more days. I don't want to take it with me to the next world.
Yeah. Wow.
And I thought, wow, what a great example.
Here's a man.
Days away from death. And I still have work to do.
Wow. Well, I get chills. That's amazing. All right, your turn. Yep.
We are out of time.
Thanks for joining us. What makes you radical? How are you radically self-accepting?
Well, I was so busy processing yours. I think I am someone that, we have a topic here, self-judgment, the inner critic.
Ooh, I know that one.
I was raised in a highly critical household. And so my process of deconstructing my inner critic, and it's not just always an inner critic, I mean, I can tear anything apart, right, has been kind of a lifelong process of work. And so when I'm free of the inner critic, when I'm free of self-judgment, I find myself profoundly happy with the process of my life and where I'm at in my life. And so that shows up definitely when I'm doing like my medicine work. I recognize that I have developed and maybe even had some particular gifts that I'm able to access in those venues. And when I'm in that process and kind of taken, if you will, by the spirit and the energy of what's happening, what I find is that's a very fluid process. And part of getting there is dismissing or dismantling the inner critic. I have come a long way about my body. Like at 61 right now, I feel like I have the strength, the vitality, the virality. I feel like a 40-year-old. And I am finding my body doing things. I mean, Nick has really been a powerful midwife for me in this process. And it's interesting. I think he's pretty dismissive of that. And I know I did the work, but his cheerleading definitely encouraged me to look at the stories that I was holding about aging.
Yeah.
And to release those and to move beyond that.
Right.
And so I look in the mirror now and I'm happy with my body. I am very satisfied with where that's at. Sometimes I'll talk to Nick about, oh, there's this or that. And to me, it's not a criticism. It's kind of like with yoga. You know what a pose should look like. And you'll practice it until it gets to that point. I kind of feel like that with my body. Like I would like to have better abs. And so I'm trying to so I'll say, gee, how do I make my abs better? It isn't a criticism. It's like, how do I work the mechanisms of nutrition and exercise? So I feel much better about my body. I feel very competent and satisfied with my work as a therapist. I feel very, the things that I often speak about in public are things that I feel a strong alignment with. Meaning I feel like I've done enough interpersonal work that I'm able now to stand in front of people and encourage that same layer of work.
Yeah.
So I don't know, am I skirting the question or am I
No, I
answering it?
think you're answering it because
Okay.
there's so many components. And what I, outside looking in, what I observe is you walk your medicine.
Hmm.
Just as I was describing Charles, Charles is always Charles. He's never anybody or anything else. I feel the same way about you. You're Jerry, and you'll always be Jerry. In whatever, place or function you're in, you're Jerry, but I want to say delivered in a way. I don't know where that word came from, but with this power of your medicine and the medicine work not only through pipe and lodge, but it shows up in your therapy work. That's because that's certainly your medicine, and now you've tapped into, because I think Nick did unlock it for you. The medicine of physicality and seeing your power and magic in that, and and loving that part of self as well. Um, and you said this about me, but I certainly see this about you. You're willing to continue to do your work. There's that word again, work. But in a way, sometimes it is when there's an obstacle, like you said, a self-critic, for example, when there's an obstacle that's kind of in the way, you don't just, you know, brush it aside
Yeah.
or tuck it away or something. You seem to tackle it.
Yeah.
Knowing, I think that, what, this is going to be an obstacle and I don't have time for this.
Yeah.
And so let me do what I know, my magic to decompress it or whatever I need to do to understand it, to even embrace it, to understand a little bit more about myself, oh, okay, I've got it, and gives you that clarity so you can continue to be Jerry and show up as, your true self. That's how I see you.
Thank you. Checks in the mail. I here's a trick to this, and I'm offering this because I think it could be helpful. One of the things that distresses me about the mental health world is when someone shows up depressed or anxious or disturbed about something.
Mm-hmm.
It often feels as if the agenda of therapy is to get away from those feelings. We take antidepressants to kill the depression, anti-anxiety to quell the anxiety. Sleeplessness is met with medications, right? And I think frequently, right, our bodies and our mood are meant to awaken us to a different layer of consciousness. Now, I am not dismissing the power of medicine.
Right.
But I often think we have normalized sedating the experience as opposed to exploring it.
Yeah.
So a couple of years ago, I went through this terrible experience, and somebody that I had a lot of respect for and kind of had on a particular pedestal dove into some deep criticism on some very faulty information. But I internalized it. And it was interesting how frequently I found myself not pondering his words so much, but I would find myself in this experience going through some very deep and profound, almost disabling anxiety.
Wow.
So much so that I was thinking, maybe I need to go talk to my doctor. Like, maybe this is what happens when one gets older. And so one night I was in the hot tub and I started getting consumed by this anxiety. And I was just kind of like, well, I was frustrated with it, right? And so, you know what? I'm just going to lean into this. If I'm going to be anxious, let's just go on and have a full-on panic attack.
Wow.
But I thought I'm just going to lean into it. And so I didn't try it, because usually when anxiety would come up, I would try to I breathe through it. I tried to find some way of dispelling it. And I thought, okay, what is my anxiety trying to say to me? Where is it trying to draw my attention? And I went into this place of, I could hear what this person was saying. You're a fraud. You're a hypocrite. You're a disservice to this and that. And And I wasn't even aware that that was like, that I was conscious of it, because when the anxiety came up, I just tried to shut it down.
Yeah.
But when I gave permission for myself to profoundly feel the anxiety and to tune into where my mind was going, and I thought, and in a moment when I realized, I thought, do I believe that? Do I believe those statements?
Mm-hmm.
And then I started to like recount people I had worked with, activism that I had been involved in. I mean, I've done a lot of things in my career. And I thought, he's the fraud.
Yeah.
He ain't done shit.
Yeah.
Which was true.
Yeah.
And, but I realized that the anxiety and the messaging was outside of myself, and I had not even become conscious of it until I gave myself permission. And once I gave myself permission, I'm like, that is not my story.
Mm-hmm.
And so then when anxiety would pop up, I could very quickly hear the narrative, and I would very quickly dismantle it with the evidence that it wasn't true.
Yes.
And I have not had that anxiety since.
Wow.
And I'm putting it out there because we're talking about radical self-acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the root of the problem of not being able to embrace radical self-acceptance is, again, we're all walking around in this cloud that everyone else somehow has the authority or the knowing to tell us who we are.
Yeah.
Even as queer people.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? How many people will say, I don't have his body. I don't have his sexuality. I don't have his whatever. It's like, again, we're seduced by these images that tell us who we should be.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens when we divorce ourselves from everyone else's opinion and settle into a space of, what is the evidence that I'm valid?
Yeah.
What is the evidence that I am worthy? What is the evidence that I am magical?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe sometimes it helps to have a guide with those things. But I think a retreat like this in a community of brotherhood will facilitate and expedite that process.
Absolutely.
And that's why I think this particular retreat,
mm-hmm.
the others have always been important and of value, but I think this one in particular is going to give us some deep invitations to reconsider ourselves.
Yeah, I love that. We're getting close to being done with our session. So thanks for the
Do you want to put down a pen or a credit?
How would you like to pay for this session? But I love what you just said, because things that just popped out: permission, facilitation, brotherhood. These are the things that I believe a retreat like this is going to allow. It will be able to come together as a community. If you're coming in feeling alone, you'll be joining a brotherhood, joining a circle, joining a community, with the opportunity and permission granted to start to unlayer. And as we unlayer, I love the question, is that true? Is that true about you?
What's the evidence that supports it? What's the evidence that does not support it?
Exactly. And if we can facilitate conversation, dialogue, and then the other activities, exercises around kind of that intention, yes, people are going to walk away enhanced, enlightened, especially if we, as the circle of brothers observing all of this happening, that we're also sitting with non-judgment, right? So there's a lot of self-judgment. If we can sit as witnesses to those who are unlayering and revealing themselves without judgment, and to radically accept them and each other, then that can turn into celebration. To celebrate, then, that stepping into that radical self-acceptance, because I think that's missing as well. Someone I think can do this work, air quotes, with a therapist or on their own or whatever. But I think what's missing is the ritual or ceremony or rites of passage around that task of, I did it. I did it. And we can stand up and applaud that. Yes, you did. And we've got you. That's, I think, what's missing. And I believe a retreat like this can reinforce that connection. You can do this. You have the permission to do the unlayering, and we've got you.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, our retreat is March 27th through the 29th. Right now, we're looking to do it in Heber, Utah. I forget how many people we thought we could take.
We could up to 12. We could probably do more, but 12 is a good max number. But anywhere between 8 to 12 people would be wonderful. I like the intimacy of a smaller group, and I think we can really do some dynamic and powerful work, even as a smaller group, air quotes, 8 to 10 people.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then we'll you can go to mindfullygay.com to register.
Yes.
We'll have other retreats. I think we talked about a summer retreat and a fall retreat.
Yeah.
We have a calendar of monthly events, everything from bowling to what else?
What else are we doing?
Trust me, it's a great list.
I know later this year, we're already thinking about. Actually, we know
cookies.
We've got cookies and holidays, but I know we're doing. Well, this is probably already passed. I'm just thinking about haunted houses, because I think the time that this episode launches, we will have just had Friday the 13th.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So we're gonna do a movie night. So movie nights, just gatherings, just ways to just come together as community and group.
Right, and then we'll end up doing a couple of sweat lodges that are specific to Mindfully Gay.
Yeah.
I do those for free or by donation, and so we're looking to reconfigure how to make that accessible, and then the retreats can be a little deeper dive, because the whole lodge thing eats up like 6 hours. So anyways, go to mindfullygay.com. You can find us on TikTok.
Yes. Mindfully
Gay. You can find us on Instagram, mindfully_gay. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Grindr. No. You can find us anywhere. And we love the feedback. Even if it's criticism, we love it. One thing we want to remind our listeners, we are not experts. Yeah. We are having a conversation, and we are inviting you to join the conversation, not to agree with it, but to let it be a catalyst in your own circles.
Right.
For self-exploration. So thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you. And until next time, be mindfully gay.
Thank you for spending this time with us.
If today's conversation resonated with you, we'd love to hear from you. Share your story or reflections with us on Instagram at mindfully_gay.
Join the conversation and leave comments on TikTok at Mindfully Gay.
And we are currently taking registrations for our Radical Self-Acceptance Retreat happening March 27th through the 29th. Go to mindfullygay.com.
If this episode meant something to you, please take a moment to rate and review it. Your support helps others find this content and join our growing community.
We're grateful you're here, and we'll see you next time.